With this video, we're going to go over autopsy and keywords in autopsy, and also talk about the National Software Reference Library, or the NSRL. So first off, let's go ahead and start up Autopsy. It's on your desktop. So go ahead and double click on Autopsy 4.4.1. This should be fairly routine for you at this point. And with these videos, as we've talked about in the course, it makes sense to follow along on your own virtual machine. So let's create a new case here. So I'm going to create a new case. And we'll call this, we'll use one of the malware images. So I'm going to call this malware. The base directory, I'm going to change that to the D drive on my system. And I have a folder here called Christian. And remember, Autopsy will create under the base directory the malware folder, as you see right there. This is where it will store all the information for Autopsy. Click on Next. The case number, this is 2017-1014. This is the second case of the day, so 02. Examiner, I'll put in my name here, Christian Espinoza. Click on Finish. And now we're going to set up, remember, the database and everything else for Autopsy, but we still have to import the evidence, or add the evidence. So when this is done, we're going to add the evidence, and it pops up here. We're going to add a disk image, which is typically what you'll add. So click on Next. I'm going to browse here to this malware image. So this will be under your lab files, and this will probably be on your D drive under Forensic Images, and then we have this malware XP image, malware, Maryville malware. We'll look at Maryville malware, this one. And this is an E01 formatted, which is in case, but that's okay. As we discussed, Autopsy can import any of those. So click on OK. I'm going to leave the time zone as Honolulu, that's fine. Click on Next. And here are all the ingest modules we discussed before. These ingest modules, we're going to leave them selected here, but you see here this one called keyword search, since the point of our video is to go over keyword searching. If you click on this, right here is what by default will be indexed or extracted from the image. So the only thing selected now is email addresses. So I'm going to go ahead and check all of these. So this means when you ingest or import the image into Autopsy, this module, keyword search, will search through the image for anything that matches one of these items here, and these are regular expressions. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those all selected, and these are very prone to false positives because, you know, technically anything with an @ sign might show up as an email address. Credit card numbers are just numbers that show up in a pattern. Same thing with phone numbers. So there is some utility in this, but just keep in mind you might see a lot of false positives. So click on Next here. We'll just go ahead and leave the rest of the modules selected. Click on Finish. And down here, we talked about the NSRL. You notice we still have this yellow box here, and it says we don't have a known bad or known hash database selected. If we get a message here about an error unpacking something, that's okay. It just means that Autopsy could not decompress something that was zipped. In this case, it was a 7-zip file. While that is ingesting, remember we can click on the button down here to look at the status. You see the overall status looks like about 2%, so it's taking a while. Recent activities at 83%. But as it's doing this, we can start looking at the data over here on the left. So let's go to Tools while everything is still ingesting. Let's go to Options here. And this is where you'll set the options for Autopsy and where you'll set the hash database. So right now, by default, Autopsy doesn't have a hash database set. And remember, we want to set a hash database so we don't waste time analyzing files that are already known good or known bad. When we talk about known good files, these are like system files, files that are associated with an application that everybody knows about. So there's no point in wasting your efforts looking in those files for keywords when those files are not going to be user created from the perspective of the case. Known bad files are known badware, known malware. So we don't want to spend a lot of time looking at known malware if we're doing malware analysis. We want to look for something that is unknown and new. So a lot of the time it might be a piece of malware that has been modified, so it doesn't have a signature. So we want to look at that and not the stuff that we've already done our analysis on or somebody else has already done the analysis on. So while this is still ingesting, you'll see there's quite a few errors here. That's fine. And it looks like it's detecting some malware. There's quite a bit of malware on this particular image. So that's okay as well, because we're going to focus on the keyword searches and the hashing. So I want to go over the NSRL. So if we open up a browser, in this case, I open up Chrome, you can just type in NSRL and hit enter or select the second one down here, the National Software Reference Library. So if I click on that, I'm going to expand this, so I'll leave Autopsy running in the background. So here is the National Software Reference Library. So this is a repository, basically a large list of hashes that are known good, and the application those hashes are associated with, or the file they're associated with. So if I go here to NSRL download, there's the current RDS hash set, and technically this is what we would want to download and import into Autopsy. So if I click on the modern RDS, which is what we want to look at here, you see it'll start downloading as 3 gig. So this is 3 gig as an ISO that is compressed. When you uncompress this or decompress this, it'll end up being about 14 or 15 gig. So for this example, I'm not going to import that here into Autopsy because it will pretty much lock up this virtual machine because it is very large. This is why on your forensic workstation you want to have as much RAM and processing power as possible. If I were to import that, I would select import database, and then I would just simply browse to the extracted data set that I downloaded from NSRL, the RDS set. And I would select here known. You see it even references NSRL. So in an ideal situation, we would have the database, the hash set in here, so we would not search any known good files. So now I'm going to go over here to keyword list, and these are the options we looked at earlier. You can add your own list if you want to. I mentioned these were regexes or regular expressions. So if you click on one of these, you can see the regular expression. We're not going to go into great detail on regular expressions. So if I go to keyword search though, in this particular image file, let's say we are looking for anything that has to do with hacker. So you can type in hacker. You can do an exact match or a substring match. So an exact match means it has to be the exact term hacker. A substring match means if it's hacker, hackers, plural, technically hacker is part of hackers, so that would match. So it depends on what you know about the case. And then, of course, we can do a regular expression, which allows us to do hacker and hackers, or hacker or hackers, or hacker with an S, or hacker with a Z, etc. So in this case, I'm just going to do a substring match, click on search. And you notice it still says this keyword search ingest, that module is still running. So what this is telling us is Autopsy is not done ingesting things. So if you run a keyword search right now, it may not be accurate, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and click on yes. And in this window up here in the upper right, it will display in the results that come back. So we'll give it some time to do that, and I'm going to pause the video, and when this is done, actually it just finished. There we go. So anything with hacker in it, I did a substring search, will show up here. So this file, copying, for instance, has hacker in it, is written by James Hacker, apparently. And if I look at the index text, that is where it found the match for hacker. So this will show me all the files that have hacker in it. If I look at the file metadata, this shows you where that file is located on the image. So this particular file, called copying, was under Documents and Settings, Administrator, My Documents, Downloads, UPX391W.zip. UPX is a packer. The ultimate packer for executables is what it stands for. So that is typically used to compress a piece of malware or packet to obfuscate it. So we've already, just from this search, we determined that UPX may have been used for something. If I look at, as an example, here's resource hacker. So hacker's in the title there. Rootkit revealer. So hacker, you see, because we did the substring, we have hacker defender rootkit. If we had just done the exact match, this particular file, this .chm file, would not have showed up because hacker has no space and then defender. So we can find a lot of useful stuff here, and if there's something interesting, we can right click on it and tag the file. So I'm just going to do a quick tag here, bookmark, and then if I look on the left over here, any interesting file I've tagged will show up under this bookmark. And there's other ways to tag this, but this way you can narrow down all the stuff you're looking at to just a subset that is relevant, or you may want to do some further analysis on later on. When we ingested the image, we also looked at some specific keywords. I mentioned these are prone to false positives. We looked at URLs. We looked at IP addresses, and here is the reg expression for URLs, actually, the regex. If I expand this, expand that, this will show me the URLs. So this is a quick way to search the entire image for anything that matches a pattern of a URL. This is different than looking at the web history. So the web history, this just looks at where the user went using Internet Explorer, which URLs they went to. This URLs search here, keyword search, looks for any URL on the image, no matter where it's located. So as an example, let's just click on this one here. So this one, this URL is located right here. So it wasn't a GET request. It was located here though as an H reference. This one is located here. Again, we can search through these. and you can see the file, the source file of where it's located. This one is insert8.db. There's the URL. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Here's one for HB Gary. So this executable, this recon or recon, has www.hbgary.com in it. So that particular URL is actually in the executable. And in these PDF files, we see the URL as well. So this is very useful if you have a particular URL you're searching for and you want to find it anywhere on the system. Same thing with IP addresses, email addresses, etc. So these are all the email addresses, and you'll get some that look bogus. This one actually shows up in blocklist.xml. So that one is actually a blocklist.xml, which is kind of interesting. Here's one here, another block list. And most of these look legit. Every now and then you'll see some false positives here. That's again the block list. But you can see all the email addresses on the system. So if there's a particular email address you're looking for that may have been involved with a case, you can quickly find it here. And you can browse through it this way, but as an example, if I know this person here, Ralph Roth at gmx.net, was pertinent to this case, I could have searched just for Ralph Roth and found it that way. I didn't have to go through the email addresses keyword list. So I could do the search like this, Ralph. I could just search for Ralph Roth if I wanted to, or I could just search for Ralph. So let's just try Ralph Roth like that. We'll do a substring match and we'll see what pops up. Again, the same message because we're still analyzing files. That's okay. And let's move this over here. And this may take a second. Right now it's searching, and we found a couple files here. We found thanks, and you notice it has Ralph Roth. So I found Ralph Roth on this file called thanks that is located, if I click on file metadata here, under documents and settings, administrator, my documents, downloads, UPX. So again, this is the ultimate packer. So it's in that file. And there it is, the ultimate packer for executables. So there's a couple ways to find things. You could use the keyword list, like we talked about. You can search specifically using a keyword search up here for an exact match or a substring match or a regular expression. So feel free to play around with the searches and the keyword list. And if you have a machine that you want to try to import the NSRL in, it just needs to be a powerful machine. So this video, as a recap, we went over Autopsy a little bit in detail about how to search for keywords. We talked about as we're ingesting an image, and we'll go back to this here. We talked about when we ingest an image, we talked about doing a keyword search on that image as well. So the ingestion modules, let me go back to that module here.